Elysian Fields, Tartarus, Elysian Fields.
My friend Gabrielle. Where is she?
Gabrielle, well, if she's dead, she didn't come to me.
For Xena in the 4th season, what overall arc were we planning? Somewhere early in the 3rd season, or maybe even the end of the 2nd season, I sat down with RJ for lunch and we kind of went over what we wanted the show, where we wanted to be, and I pitched him Ides of March, kind of, or what later became Ides of March as the season 4 cliffhanger. And so it was partway through season 3, because he went, well, we're gonna kind of do that cliffhanger with Gabrielle at the end of season 3. But then he thought about it and thought that was really a good idea. And then I said, then we kind of came to the idea, what if there was a way in the 1st episode of the season, which was actually the 2nd part of the a 2-parter, if we were able to flash back to that and to give a premonition as to how that season would end. And so that was really just a very loose framework. We knew some things we wanted to do, and then season 4 was Gabrielle's exploration of what her role in the universe is.
Exhale, slowly down. Concentrate on the breathing only. Good. Good.
You never concentrated on just breathing before.
Whoever does. But that's exactly where it starts. From a single breath. Without breath, there is no life, right?
Right.
Her quest for the answers to life and the meaning of life really kind of propelled our journey through the entire 4th season, and culminating in the final episode of that season. So it was a very deliberate exploration of Gabrielle and the meaning of life and where Xena fit in that meaning. And Xena kind of got a little bit of her own questioning, what's the meaning of life, but she's Xena, and she gets like 1 episode to think about that.
You see, Xena, none of us can pass through the gate to eternity. We're doomed to wander the land of the dead forever. Alti did this to you. Yes, Alti.
I think the plans for the 4th season were we had no idea what we were doing, just
Yeah.
to sort of wing it, right?
We had to somehow survive.
Right.
Let's see, what did we know? We knew that we were stuck with getting Gabrielle out of this stupid lava pit.
Correct. Correct.
And that somehow she would be alive, and that had to be believable. And we knew that by the end of the year, she was going to be on a cross.
On a cross, exactly. And we wanted to tease that from the very beginning. So we had to create a scene that we could tease the audience with, that we would then have to match exactly later on in the year. It was something that you never do if you're sane. And I remember even saying to Rob and RJ and Liz and everybody else, "Are you insane?" But we did it anyway.
Yes, but you still have to do it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we created. We knew we were going to do it in the snow, and we knew that I think by that point we knew Gabrielle's hair was going to be different.
Right.
And all that. So we
part of her way is a shorter haircut.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I went to India, and that's what happened with my hair too.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were a lot of real logistical problems, and we also, being that we had done a pretty amazing 3rd season, wanting to top ourselves and
Right.
go farther around the world, do more intensive episodes. Certainly, this show was getting darker in tone, which I thought was very interesting, and just bigger overall. So I think we knew that we had to. From my standpoint anyway, knew that we were going to be doing a lot of moving around and a lot of big episodes. So.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting with these, the action shows is that, the 1st season, okay, they fight 5 guys, and that's a pretty cool scene. Well, then you got to do something better the 2nd season, so then it's got to be 12 guys, and then it's got to be 13 guys and a monster. And so every season we just sort of kept leaning harder and harder on Eric until, well, he snapped.
Exactly.
Left.
Exactly. I remember Rick Jacobson calling me after he read the script for A Good Day, and saying, have you read this script, or have you read this beat sheet? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, how are we going to do this? And I said, we're just going to recycle people over and over again. He said, it's like Ben-Hur. And I said, yeah, and it's going to be your responsibility to give it to us in 8 days.
Yeah.
So one of the other good things is that we were getting very good at what we were doing too, and the system was in place and working. We were able to draw from what we had done in the past, and we knew just how much we could actually achieve in a day. So we were also getting more realistic, and I think that's why the shows in the 4th season really blossomed from a production, quality standpoint. I mean, so many of the episodes in that feel like feature films to me, because we were able to really utilize the second unit well. Really, and everybody was sort of on their stride. The scripts were terrific, and I think everybody was excited by it going darker and deeper and more emotional between between Xena and Gabrielle, and Hercules, who would come in occasionally just to mix things up.
Just to say hello.
Correct.
I think that, as Lucy said before, I always enjoyed sort of the evolution and transformation of Gabrielle. So when Rob started talking about Gabrielle going into this new state of nonviolence, I thought it was a fantastic idea, because again, it just showed she was showing a new side to Gabrielle, that she's trying to find her way and who she is as a person, especially in the light of living with a warrior. I thought it was great.
It certainly took us through India, took us through Crusader, if I'm not wrong, took us through a whole bunch of episodes that she was looking for direction.
I made my first film in 5th grade. I started in animation, just doing little stop motion with clay and stuff, and just always was fascinated about kind of, bringing these little monsters and stuff to life. And then that kind of transitioned into doing little live action shorts with friends, and it's kind of all I ever wanted to do growing up. Parents thought it was going to be one of those passing fads, but year after year, that's all I wanted to do. The old grades in school kind of suffered a little bit because of that, because I just had no reason for math in filmmaking. Of course, now, I certainly see stuff that I probably should have paid a little bit more attention in school, but so then I came down to Cal Arts, went to Cal Arts for a couple years, started working in the film business, doing grip electric work, kept making my own short films along the side, and eventually just made a film that got noticed by a producer. That got me directing second unit. Off of that, I directed my own feature. I did 15 features, and then just kind of got derailed a little bit into television, and started doing Xena and Hercules in '97, was my first year for them. And spent about 4.5 years down in New Zealand doing them and other shows, and so it was a great run.
I keep thinking about what I'd want to do that would be the next step after doing Herc and Xena, and I have to say I really enjoyed Cleopatra in terms of television, and I watch CSI and that and think there are people who can realize that better, although there are aspects now to CSI that it's a really visual show, but that's not what I do. And so as far as doing other things that would just be talking heads, that wouldn't interest me. So I'd never want to do a law show or a cop show unless it was, chases and fun and but just straight talking heads. But I want to do a soap opera one day, so I guess I don't mind talking heads, as long as they're saying the right things.
India is so different, and yet there's this connection too, It's so exotic, so mysterious, so look. Maybe that's India's way of rolling out the red carpet. That's gotta hurt.
The trip to India. Well, I remember that Liz called asking me if, for I think the 6th time, Rob Tappert was obsessed with having an elephant in shows
Yeah.
occasionally. So, can we find an elephant
Can we find
for
an
India?
elephant? There were, in the story meetings, you know, as we were working out this stuff, I would always be taking down the list of things that I would have to ask Eric if it was possible that we could do to see if we were going to have them in the story or not.
Can we have a 737 fly,
That's right.
land on set?
That's right. Is it a problem if the dragon dances?
Right.
You know, and some of them, you know, it was just normal. Okay, that bar, we're thinking it's going to be like this. We'll make that an exterior. And then there'd be the, can you see it? Is there an elephant in New Zealand? And I'm like, do I really have to? Okay, I have to call and ask
that Rob
if there's.
You just did?
I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Who would it be? It wasn't the elephant. And I'd have to call Eric and say, Eric, is there an elephant in New Zealand? And he would say, you know, for the 7th time, yes, there is one elephant, but he's very old and sick, and no one can ride on him.
Virtually untrainable. Right.
Yeah, that's right. He's killed several people. But
Yeah.
one sad, sad little elephant.
And we have to go and bribe the Auckland Zoo and his trainer to see if we can get him out. And
That's
so,
right.
so the elephant question came back and forth, just like the chimp question came back and forth.
That's right.
The lion question.
Right. I will explain, though, that the elephant question was about Hannibal, was about Rob wanting to do Hannibal and, you know, his ride on the elephant. So it wasn't completely crazy. I mean, it was slightly crazy.
But we did finally manage to wrest the elephant away from the Auckland Zoo, got the trainer, and I think it's in the second...
It is?
The second India episode. Oh, sure.
Oh, my God.
It adds enormous production value. You think you're sure that you're in India because there's an elephant, even though I think it possibly is an African elephant.
Oh, God.
But yeah.
Really, you just should have had some chutney and you would have been fine.
Correct. So your question was about the India episodes and was that difficult? Do we build new sets? Like we were doing very cleverly, I'd like to think by the 4th season, we had a lot of different streets that we had built on our movie ranch in Auckland, and so what it was a major redress of some of those streets, and
satisfied.
What we loved about going to different lands was the ability and the fun it was to create through costume and through production design new worlds and our own take on it too. So. I always liked when we'd go to India for 2 or 3 episodes, for instance, because it would allow us to actually do a great job and amortize those costs over 3 acts.
How much lead time did you have on the India stuff when you knew that it was coming and could start the build and whatnot?
We knew probably about 2 months before we shot that we were going to be going to India. And so what we would do also is then we would start talking back and forth, okay, this is what I think what I have that we can reuse. So we know that we're going to have an urban setting. We know that we can have some countryside settings, things like that. So we could start to actually design those kind of things. Nyla, who was our costume designer at the time, had less time because we really couldn't start designing costumes until we knew exactly what the characters were going to do. And it was especially fun to dress up our leads in new costumes when we'd send them to Egypt or India or whatever. So that was great fun.
And good for action figures.
Absolutely.
You can have Indian Xena and Viking Xena.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Maya! By the gods, what's happened? Wait! There's still a chance I can save her. I will require complete silence. Thank the gods you're all right. For a moment, I thought something went wrong.
I just like going to India because the sets were so cool and the people, the extras were so interesting too. really, like they were always bringing you food and like inviting you to their home.
Oh, yes.
It was an interesting group of extras.
Right. And the fabrics around those episodes were so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like because of those episodes, I now love any sort of a sari fabric, or Indian artwork.
One of my favorite episodes ever on Xena was The Way, directed by John Fawcett, who's an incredibly talented director. And in that, Xena's told by Krishna if she ever needs anything to call out his name. So once the evil villain has chopped off both their arms and she's lying on the ground flapping like a fish, she says Krishna and calls on him. And then appears, comes back, is reincarnated as one of the great Indian mythological entities. But the real problem that people objected to that episode who were not in the know. Actually, that's not right. People who objected to that episode were people who were European believers in Krishna, and no other deity was allowed to exist in their world. So the fact that we had taken various aspects of Indian mythology and kind of crashed them all together and had Hanuman and Krishna and these other entities all appearing at the same time was an insult to Krishna. But they were able to turn this into kind of an Americans running all over Indian mythology. So it got all kinds of. Eventually, the ambassador, the Indian ambassador to the United States, called the head of Universal and said, "You guys got to do something." And there was big protest, and they were having at City Walk up at Universal. They were going to have a famous Indian rock group playing for like 15,000 people up there, and they were very concerned that it was going to be an incendiary point, and so they pulled the episode. And then we kind of worked with people, and ultimately, in order to get the episode back on the air, we had to put a little disclaimer at the end with Lucy and Renee saying that, this is a great religion and blah, 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 and we had to take out Xena headbutting Hanuman. So that was really the sum total that it came down to. But the World Vaisheshavana organization was the one who kind of propelled this drama.
Now, Eric, when you made the transition from being a producer to actually directing,
yes,
in this same system,
yes,
how did you have more sympathy for those poor blokes?
No.
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 Was that an easy transition?
It was easy because I did it very late in the cycle, and so I knew. I mean, I had the luxury of having the entire the entire crew and cast know me very well.
Right.
I knew what their strengths and weaknesses were, and so it was a very easy transition for me there. But no, it never gave me any less. It's all about, these shows I've always said are all about the preparation, and if you come to set knowing what you want, chances are you're going to get great material. And if you come to set sort of with your head in the clouds, not knowing what you're going to do that day, you normally get boned.
It's a technical term.
It is.
Boned.
Yeah, it is.
Find her!
Whenever I talk about directing someone like Lucy and Renee, it's, I like to kind of think I have this great impact on it, but actors of their caliber and the way they know their characters, they really don't need much direction. The biggest thing I think I bring to the table is trying to create an atmosphere that, is fun to work in and is creative on their side, on the actor side and on the crew side. I always encourage, input from everybody. And, but with them, all I can really do is just kind of help them along of where their character is in the script, because we're shooting scenes all over the place and it's not in continuity. So sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, that's right, this was going on before that, so I was acting like that then, so you come through the door with that same energy because you were just coming out of that fight scene. It's little things like that that I can help them with. But outside of that, they're gone. They know their characters better than anybody. So for me to sit there and say, I think Xena should do, it's like, nah, ain't gonna work.
Who did cut Gabrielle's hair? I can't remember.
I saw that yesterday, somebody cut him more hair. The jailer.
No, but the original, the real cut.
Well, I think Xena did it.
With a chakram or something?
Yeah. So, just tied a ponytail up over a branch and whacked
Did
it
you
off.
hate that? But then I had a lovely trim, didn't I? That horrible, horrible wig. Every time I see that, I just cringe. You don't remember that?
That was a wig?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Come on. No, it was. I loved the haircut though. It was fun for me to just shed the
girly image.
The girly image.
Some of our fans didn't like that.
I know, but
just
anyway.
got all butch on them.
Hey, well, trying to embrace unity. But to me, like the whole hair thing became a bit of a prop, and it sometimes became about hair acting and trying for continuity. You had to be aware of things that didn't want to have to worry about. So I was very pleased when they took off the locks.
I got so tired of Renee whining that she wanted to do something with her hair that we had punished her relatively severely that season by making her walk barefoot through the mud in New Zealand. So eventually, with all of her pleading for a haircut, the opportunity presented itself for Xena to save Gabrielle by throwing her chakram and giving her a buzz cut. And at first I thought we made a terrible error, but we actually knew before we started the entire season that we were going to do that, because we shot this little flash forward at the beginning for the first couple episodes and we put a bad wig on Renee that was short, but we had already committed by that time that we were going to, during the course of that season, chop her hair off. And it was a way of making her, since she was on this journey to go from a young girl to an adult, we thought that that was an outward symbol of it.
RJ and Rob so loved that period in history. The stories were, they really diced with history, and sort of took something, misappropriated things, or appropriated things for us, and it was cool to pop your characters into real events.
RJ and Steve and myself were all huge fans of history, and any chance that we got to play with history and put our character Xena right dead smack in the middle of ancient Roman politics, we did. So one of my favorite episodes, A Good Day, that was really Xena in the middle of a very famous battle where Caesar defeats Pompey, and Pompey flees and ultimately gets beheaded.
Actually, Rob was in New Zealand quite often. We didn't have too much of that long distance. Occasionally he would be there, but for the most part, like at the major production meetings and stuff, he would be there, which was great because so much of the show is from his vision, and especially in the case of Locked Up and Tied Down, that had kind of came from an idea he and Josh Becker had. And I can't remember the exact name of the movie, but there was one movie in particular that they were really kind of keen on.
Gabrielle, Naima is not Alti's enemy. It's the
Mendy was perfect symbolism to this, because when you think about it, Mendy, if you've done it and if you've read up on what Mendy means, and it's not just drawing. Mendy has an entire meaning behind it. There's a whole philosophy and spirituality based on Mendy. And in my mind, the simplest part of it was the fact that Mendy has a lot of lines that run parallel to each other, and then they will intersect, they will form beautiful designs, then they will part again and run parallel. Well, that's lives. Xena and Gabrielle, those are the lives, those are the threads of their life. They run parallel to each other, they intersect, form beautiful designs. Then they might part, but they still run parallel to each other. And what really counts is what's between those lines. There's the title, Between the Lines. So there was, once again, many, many layers in this particular script and the things that the characters could do. And projecting them forward into their future lives, what is the ultimate destiny of these characters? How can they constantly improve themselves? Well, it was fairly obvious. For Gabrielle, she needs to become more aware about the world and more responsible about herself. Well, the character she becomes, Shakti, I'm amazed I even remembered that name, he was charismatic, a good person, somebody who led for what was right. He's somebody who, because of his power, could have become despotic, but didn't.
Gabrielle. Is that you?
Yeah, well, yeah, they're like, you know, they're sisters. They know each other, you know, better than you know anybody does. They the way they interact, and that interaction you see on the screen is them offset. You know, you look over and they're sitting in the chairs, and it's that same, just like it's like two sisters. You know, that's great to watch.
Directing on a television schedule, we've always called the director the chump du jour. And so it is endless series of compromises directing on television. You never really get a chance to realize that which you really wanted to. You have to really pick your battles. I'll shoot this one cool shot today and one cool shot tomorrow, and if it costs me more than 2 hours, I got to walk away from that setup, as you quickly learn. So in this particular episode, Paradise Found, I really wasn't ever planning to direct it. I really wanted to do one of those darn India ones. And John Fawcett said he'd do The Way, and I went, he's a better director anyways. So, but then in order to compensate for all the money we had spent, that became like a 5.5-day episode. And I thought it would be a good experience for myself as a director to have to do what was the shortest episode we had ever done on Xena. I had given myself more time previously on episodes, but now I wanted to do 5.5 days, 3 characters, and to tell that. And even though it was a small story and a small cast, it lent itself to visuals that that I kind of wanted to put on film. So there was aspects of that story that even on a real short, tight schedule that I thought I could realize.